The Stolen Child by Sanjida K is quite addictive. I did get to a point where I couldn't put it down and I had to know what happened, and I read it in a couple of sittings. But I will say it took a little bit of time to get there. I think maybe the first third of the book was quite slow, and I didn't really know if I'd even finished the book. And then the first dramatic thing happens, which I'll discuss in a moment, but I won't give any spoilers. The first dramatic thing happens, and then after that point, I just thought, yep, I need to know what happens. I'm not putting this down. So this is about, as I'm sure you can guess, a child who was stolen. The tagline for this is, 7 years ago you stole my child, now I want her back. That's not quite what it sounds like. 7 years ago, Zoe and Ollie adopted a little girl. She couldn't have a child of her own. They adopted this little girl who was the baby of a drug addict. And, Evie is not a very likeable child, I'll be perfectly honest. And I think that's one of the reasons why I just wasn't really getting into it. And then she goes missing, and I really enjoyed it. When she stops becoming a present character, I was actually really intrigued. I don't know what that says. Probably more about me than it does about the character. But as it suggests there, her father, as we are led to believe, somebody writing notes to her saying, I'm your father, I'm going to, come and take you away and we'll be together. And these notes are being left in the garden. Evie begins to turn against her adoptive family and want to be with her real father, as she says. And then one day, she goes missing. And it's all about trying to track down who's been leaving these letters. Is it her birth father? Is it somebody playing a prank? How could they possibly have taken Evie or even known where she was? And that is an interesting concept. And I will say, first of all, there are one too many suspects. I feel like there were too many paths that this was trying to lead you down. Obviously, with thrillers and mysteries and crime novels in general, it's good to have various avenues, because then as a reader you don't quite know which one you're supposed to be believing. Obviously, when you read these kind of books, you make up your mind and think, well, I think it was this person, or I think it was this reason. This one, I think there were one too many, and yes, it's trying to say that Zoe cannot trust anybody in her life, but at the same time, I think they could have at least not suspected at least one person. I might say who that person is if I give some spoilers towards the end, but for now I will keep stum. What I will say is that I didn't work out who it was until maybe 2 or 3 chapters before it was actually revealed. I did work out who it was beforehand, before it was revealed, and yeah, I'm not that, it's not the outcome I would have wanted. If I were writing this myself, it's certainly not the outcome I would have had, but it tied the threads together nicely. Everything that had happened in the novel leading up to that made sense, at least everything in terms of clues that were given. What doesn't make sense is a lot of the characters' actions. There are one too many twists in it. Now, I love a twist in a psychological thriller. Anything to keep me on my toes. But I think it was a bit too unbelievable at times and a bit too unrealistic. And I think some of Zoe's actions in particular were unrealistic. And I think there were so many times when she should have confessed to things that she had said or done, and she just didn't. Now, obviously, I've never been in this situation, but so I can't say accurately how a person would respond. But I just think Zoe's actions were not entirely believable, and I think her relationship with the character of Harris was also not very believable, at certain points at least. Also, there were a few times, how do I say this without spoiling anything? A few times when Harris's name is spelled incorrectly at certain points. I can't explain that without spoiling it, but that's a bit irritating. Could have done with another proofread, but other than that, it's not badly written. Okay, so I'm going to give 2 spoilers now. That's the basics. If you like psychological thrillers, stories about missing children, you will thoroughly enjoy this. There will be bits that will probably annoy you or irritate you or make you feel like it's unrealistic, but for the most part, it's really good. Okay, so spoilers from now. So the thing about Harris I was saying is that once we find out his name is Harris with one R, the book does every now and then say his name with two R's, and it's very annoying. I don't think Andy should have been a suspect. I don't think that should have been a part of this. It didn't make any sense to me. Making her teacher a suspect, yes, that kind of makes sense. The fact that there was no CCTV in the school grounds doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Like, that is a massive plot flaw. Granted, if there'd been CCTV, they probably would have resolved it within the first couple of pages after she went missing. But that was a major flaw in this that, it should never have been the case. The ending itself and the fact that it was Hannah and the fact that Hannah goes by 3 names is just another one of those things that's just a bit over the top and a bit far-fetched. The other thing is that she lived close by in Ilkley, obviously where her parents are, but they went and collected the child in London. Now, I'm not saying that that's a plot issue. I just need kind of somebody to confirm for me if that's normal. Would people travel to a completely different city to give birth and then have a child? Like, it's too much of a coincidence that the child's collection was arranged in London and then both the birth mother and the adoptive family both just happened to live in Ilkley. Like, that's too much of a coincidence, and it's unrealistic. So that's something I had a bit of a problem with as well. I felt like it was too convenient and too easy for them to tie up the loose ends. It sounds like I'm being quite negative about this book, and actually, it is good. It is really good. The bits that are written from the birth father's perspective, as it were, from the bits that are written by, Hannah, as we later find out, completely irrelevant and completely pointless. I did not like those. I thought they served no purpose. I found them really boring, and I didn't feel like they gave any clues, but I also felt like they didn't give any red herrings to take us off of the trail. I just thought they served no purpose whatsoever, and I felt like it was just padding. Plus, they weren't really well spread out. In the beginning, there were like 2 or 3 of those, and then there was like 1 towards the end or something like that. Really pointless and kind of watered down the quality of the book. Having said all of that, also the character of Ruby, I don't know what I think about her. I really do not know what I think about her. There were times when I thought she could have been the culprit for no reason other than just some of the things that she said or did. I don't know how that would have worked. But it's a good book. I'm just in 2 minds about whether I think it's a good book or a great book. Because most books, even brilliant books, have got, typing errors and plot flaws. But ultimately the story kept me hooked and I wanted to find out what happened and I wanted to continue reading. And I was upset when it finished. So that's the hallmark of a really good story. So maybe if it had another couple of edits, it would have been great. The narrative itself is reasonably well told. Some decent twists, 1 too many. Some decent characters, again, 1 too many suspects. But ultimately, The Stolen Child is one I'd be happy to recommend.